Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. As Hungary approaches national elections next spring and the populist government's popularity plummets, Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has focused on the main topic he hopes to convince voters: the alleged threat from neighbouring Ukraine. To draw as many Hungarians into its story as possible, the government has organised a massive consultation campaign, which ends today. Will this shift voters towards Orbán in next year's elections? Well, to lay it out for us, we're joined by András László Pap. He's Professor of Law. Professor, welcome to TVP World and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Pleasure. So let's start with this, I don't know what you'd call it, a referendum. Does it have any legal weight at all?
Okay, yes. So before getting to talk about the actual content and the possible outcomes, let me just very briefly talk about what this is. So, one of the academic literature usually refers to what's going on and what's happening in Hungary, sort of this hybrid authoritarian regime, is that the way this works, one of the way it works is ruling by cheating. So what we see in these regimes is that classic instruments and the methods in democracy, in constitutional democracies, are being hijacked, right? So they use the language, they use this sort of constitutional imagination for authoritarian and purposes. So this consultation. So the first thing the Orbán government came up with was something was called national consultation. So it appears to be like a referendum, but basically what has happened is that citizens were receiving envelopes, we're receiving, messages, a questionnaire from the government, of course. So this is basically party campaign, government campaign from taxpayers' money. But there was no, unlike in a referendum where you have all these guarantees, you have an electoral committee where, opposition parties and even civil watchdog organizations can be present. So you have none of these in a national consultation. It basically, the government says that, 2 million people have sent back their answers and they said this and that. So this is very similar to this. It's now called Voting 2025. So it started with this envelope, with this printed paper version. And then, because presumably the response rate was not enough, they moved to the internet, so people could also fill out this questionnaire, this questionnaire online. Although you could click and connect multiple times. So there's no procedure guarantees, and there's no transparency in how many people are actually taking part of this. There's no objective, transparent verification of this. So Prime Minister Orbán said.
So in terms of the framework, and the reliability of this result, whatever it is, it's fairly questionable. Now, before we go into the content a little bit more, there's a short video that I'd like to share with you. It's of Prime Minister Orbán, and he put this out in a tweet. I'll get your take on that afterwards.
Thank you.
Ukraine was already a failed state before the war. Since the early 1990s, Ukraine has not succeeded in building a functioning Ukrainian state. That is why bringing Ukraine into the Union economically would mean economic collapse for us. But there is an even bigger problem. Look at how the EU's enlargement to the east happened. First, everyone was admitted to that. This guaranteed the military security of the region. Only after that came EU membership. Today that is impossible. NATO membership for Ukraine would mean immediate and direct war with Russia. Ukraine is not fit to become a member of the European Union or NATO. That is reality. Not a wish, not a dream, but reality. One could call it the geopolitical reality.
Your thoughts, András?
So clearly, Ukraine is the new. Now the campaign has two pillars: Ukraine, anti-Ukraine sentiments, and EU, anti-EU. So what used to be a few years ago Soros and Brussels, now it's Brussels and Ukraine. And as I said, the Prime Minister said that more than 2 million people, so Hungary has a population of about 10 million, less than 10 million people, which is about 8 million voters. So he said that at least that's what the government says, that there are more than 2 million people have filled out this questionnaire or this, or have voted for this either online or on paper. Again, no one has a way to verify this. So to answer to your question, so if you believe what the government says, then you believe these numbers. If you're skeptical about government, claims and which again, of course, a lot of that is fake news. A lot of that has been, proven not to be the case. Then you don't believe in this. So, for example, today was the day when the deadline ended for voting for this questionnaire. And so Prime Minister Orbán has this Friday morning regular interviews in the public radio, and in this he actually made statements that if Ukraine was admitted to the European Union, then actually the agricultural subsidies to Hungary would significantly decline. So that was one of the statements, which is factually, according to analysts, is not true, because there's no direct causal relationship between the two. So he was also making claims that, if Ukraine was to join, then not only would subsidies be lessened for agriculture, but also, workers would come, cheap labor would come that would take away the jobs of Hungarians, whether they are agriculture workers or waiters in the tourism or the restaurant industry. So basically, this is now one of the main pillars of government propaganda, and a massive amount of money has been spent on this particular campaign. So billboards, ads in radio and television and all media. And by all media, we mean most of the media that is actually accessible to people. As you know, not only is public media strictly or strongly controlled by the government, but also most of the commercial media is also owned by government allied oligarchs, and who are basically transmitting blatant government propaganda and often fake news as well.
Right. So why pick Ukraine as the hill to kind of die on, if you like, in terms of swinging voters towards him? What is it that he thinks is going to resonate amongst the Hungarian population about Ukraine?
Well, I'm no political analyst. I'm a constitutional lawyer, so I wouldn't know what he thinks. My personal belief, it could be two reasons. One is that it's a commitment. It's an open commitment to Russia, and I guess this is the kind of built on the pro-Russian government politics, which for some reason seems to be, again, a very important pillar of the government's, I would say, rhetoric or campaign. And the other is, well, this is fear-mongering again. This is something that, the war and then. So recently, last week, the candidate for Budapest mayor by Fidesz, who have lost the opposition a few months back, has posted this video, which was basically talking about Ukrainians smuggling people and drugs and all that, and there was an actor waving from the trunk of a car, and then this former mayor candidate, who again who's by the way the wife of the defense minister, has been campaigning with very blatant anti-Ukrainian messages. So this appears to be the main stream of government propaganda. I would believe that Orbán's spin doctors and advisors would think that this is something to keep the remaining Fidesz supporters. Just this week's polls came out, and they have shown an unprecedented lead, and apparently of opposition of the opposition main opposition candidate. So. Again, whether that pays off as a policy, that is to be seen. But apparently, this seems to be the main rhetorical sort of path that the government now follows.
I'd like to get your view also on the lead that you just mentioned. Tisha Party, according to the latest poll, 15 points ahead. of Viktor Orbán's Fidesz party. And historically speaking, the polls tend to be accurate. And so this is perhaps something that's particularly worrying to Prime Minister Orbán. Maybe he's just grappling for straws. What do you think the European Union can do, if anything? Because this seems like a ploy to influence a democratic election, doesn't it?
That's that's very difficult to predict. I mean, a lot of people, again, this is not my professional opinion, but as a citizen living here, a lot of people have doubts whether there will be elections or not, whether they're going to change the electoral regime or not. This week, the government's spokesperson was very clear in saying that they will not change electoral laws. There will be elections. So again, those of you who trust government communication are probably now rest assured. Right. It's very unpredictable. I mean, so far that has been the most important feature of Orbán's regime, that there was a formal adherence to the rule of law. There was a discussion, there is still a legal and a political discussion saying the EU says, then the opposition says that it is no longer a rule of law country, and then the government says, but it is. We have been elected with a 2/3 majority, and there is so far no official deterrence or official negation, refusal to adhere to the principles of constitutionalism and rule of law has been played by Orbán. In fact, that was always the argument, that we are a legitimately elected government and we always play by the book and we follow the rules. So it would be a game changer if anything was, if there was a formal departure from this rhetoric.
Can you change the constitution?
They changed the constitution left and right. They changed the constitution in individual, MPs, bills submitted Sunday afternoon, and then in 24 hours they changed the constitution. They've changed the constitution 15 times. Anything is possible.
So
what has been really
Sorry, please finish.
No, what has been really interesting, that's something that really put Hungary in headlines, and especially for constitutional commentators and stuff, is this bill that was called the transparency bill, which was even harsher than any of the Russian sort of foreign agent bills that would have completely had the potential to completely silence media, academia, lots of other things, which was basically for the first time it was submitted as an individual, individual
right.
members, which was then signed by more than 100 members of parliament, including Orbán himself.
Yeah.
So that seemed like and then it was withdrawn.
So,
it wasn't formally withdrawn. It was.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to stop you there. We are out of time. But thank you very much indeed, Professor Pap, for laying that out for us. Do come and see us again soon. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. I will.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
It's an honor. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Goodbye.